Here he comes.
Right.
Okay.
Morning, Senator McCrory.
Morning, everybody.
Senator McCrory. Senator McCrory.
Hello, Madam Administrator.
Good morning, Representative Belinsky.
Susan, how are you feeling today?
Uh,
I
I'm
don't know.
feeling fine. The brain is a little foggy today.
Me too. And last night the roads were foggy. Did
Oh
you?
my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
yeah, it was really a little challenging, but we're here. Thank you. It was
Thank you.
it was really moving testimony last night, honestly.
Yeah, very powerful testimony.
Good morning, Susan. I missed the testimony. What happened?
Health.
Mhm.
We had the health hearing last night.
Oh, DPH?
Well, the most compelling testimony was DDS and DMIS.
Yeah.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, sir, are you ready to get the show on the road?
It's my show?
It's your show.
Oh,
Last I looked, you were the Senate chair of the subcommittee.
yeah, I guess I am. Who do we have?
And we have our favorite commissioner, Commissioner Russell Tucker, ready to roll.
Okay.
Yesterday, I forwarded to the subcommittee members the responses from the commissioner and her staff. So however it is you'd like to proceed, sir.
Okay. All right, 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Did we invite her in?
I am here, Senator McCrory.
The
Well,
whole
good
team,
morning.
the whole team is here, Senator, ready.
I am so nervous. Well, Commissioner, thanks for coming this morning to have a conversation about your budget for the upcoming session. Um, I will begin by giving you an opportunity if you want to give us a quick overview from where you guys are, and then I'm gonna let the members of this committee ask questions, and I'll finalize it with some questions of my own, or maybe you might say something in your presentation and make me want to ask a real quick question to get things started. So what I'm going to do is let you present your case to our committee members, and then we move forward from there. Okay.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator McCrory and all the esteemed members of the subcommittee. I'm pleased to be here. I'm Charlene Russell Tucker, Commissioner of Education, here with my team, the awesome team at the Department of Education. And actually, since our Appropriations Committee hearing, we provided responses to you. That's what you have in front of you. Thank you, Laura, for putting all that together. Responding to your questions on the ASTE program, the VOAG program, the LEAP program that you had questions on. There were questions on school meals that we provided lengthy response to. You also asked for additional information on excess cost. We were asked to provide preliminary information for the 2 charter schools that have initial State Board of Education approval, so we shared that. And basically, and some updates on staffing and where we are. And you also had asked us to share our communication that we provided to districts since our last meeting on excess costs and also on the ESSER funding resources that they have. Additionally, we had received information from OFA specifically about our magnet and choice programs, and we provided responses to those as well. So we stand ready, Senator, and the committee members to answer any follow-up questions that you have on those topics for which you were so interested in the appropriation hearing that you wanted to get additional information on.
And I got a chance to look through your responses actually earlier this morning. I didn't the ones I needed to look at. I looked at in depth. One of the questions I said I was gonna let everybody else talk first, but I do have one question about excess cost. And I looked at your answer, and you compared your numbers from I think it was 19 to 20, and you look at the numbers of 2023, and clearly this cost is not being increased because of the number of students in special needs services, but the excess cost is continuing to rise. Do you have what's your take on excess cost and why it's increasing? Is it cost? Is the cost to service the child increasing over the years? What do you take assess that number, that increase in number continuing to go up for? Because again, 2019 numbers, you have more students in 2019, but the cost is less. You're at 2023, you have less students, but the cost is even higher. Can you give me a synopsis real quickly of what do you think that's causing that, and then I'll follow up after that.
Yeah. So thank you for that question, and it's really important. And for those members who are following along, it is number 4 in the response that we provided, and it's a great question. We also laid out for the past 5 years where we've been, and you see those costs there to your point that you're asking, and it is really uncertain, or it's not clear whether the increase is due to a jump in the cost of services. We know that inflation causes the cost all go up, or whether our eligible students just have more needs than they had in prior years. And so that is causing an increase in the cost there as well. So I think it's a combination of both, Senator, that we are seeing, but clearly we see the jump in costs. And I'm gonna tag Ajit a little bit, who's looked very closely at these numbers. Ajit, if you wanted to jump in here as well, because it's a great question, and it makes it so unpredictable for us, right? That's really a part of the issue, which is why we gave you kind of an historical data of where we are on that. Ajit, do you just want to jump in here on this one?
No, Commissioner, I think you actually summed it up very well, in that we are not entirely able to ascertain whether the increase is due to students having more needs among the students who are in this need to have have these excess costs, or whether it's just the cost of services has increased. As the commissioner mentioned, we think it's likely both those factors, some combination of both those factors. And as you rightly observed, Senator McCrory, the number of students is reasonably consistent, maybe even a little less with fewer students, but greater cost. I think the only thing I'll point out is that if you look at the historical trend, clearly with the pandemic years, there was a slight decline. And in 22-23, we're sort of similar to pre-pandemic levels. The jump in 23-24 is like no other that we have seen in recent past. That was a very significant increase in the total cost, going from about 204 million to 255 million, with not a corresponding increase in the number of students, such that if you were to do sort of an average of that excess cost, it's like over 60,000 per student for whom we're seeking excess cost.
Wow. Do you think that, I'm going to ask this last question just on that, but I do have a question about that. The increase in 2023, do you think it was reflected because of COVID and we saw that more students were identified as for special needs services or been labeled for special needs services coming out of COVID, and that's why you saw the numbers increase that much for 22-23?
22-23, do you mean the cost in 21-22 to 22-23, that increase?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Commissioner, I'd probably ask Brian to weigh in on this as well, if it makes sense. I think the arrangements that districts had for students who needed specialized services, I think caught back up to pre-pandemic levels. So, Senator, if you look at the 19-20 numbers, that was around 197 million, 198 million, and back up to 204 million. So that's kind of those 2 years pre to post pandemic, if you will, are reasonably sort of consistent. But Brian, I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
So Senator McCrory, is Brian here? Brian is our special ed director, and so I know he works very closely with our districts on these issues. But I so appreciate this conversation because it's very difficult to predict, but one that is so important as these costs are real for the districts.
And just one point, Brian, before you jump in, Senator, the numbers that we've given for 23-24 are preliminary because they're based off of our December 1 count. Right. There is a March 1 update that's going to come. So, and historically, after the March 1 update, the numbers do increase even a little more. So we don't know where we're going to actually end up the final numbers for 23-24. So, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, Senator, good morning, everyone. Brian Klimkowitz, Special Education Division Director. I would say that our prevalence rates for identifying students have steadily increased over the years. And it is, I'm generalizing here, but it's very rare for a student to be, once they're identified, to be in that category of 4.5 times above the cost. I'm not saying it never happens, but we're talking about our students with the highest needs. And the majority of students who qualify for excess costs are placed out of the school district. That doesn't mean that there are not students that are in district supported that don't qualify, but we know the higher percentage do. One factor that should be considered is that the maximum age of eligibility was extended twice recently. Once it used to be the end of the school year for when students turn 21. There was a court case that overturned that to the day of the student's 22nd birthday, and then last legislative session, the extension to the end of the school year in which that student turned 22. And we know there are certainly some high-cost students that are in that category that may factor into that increase as well. But I don't see an increase in prevalence rates coming off of pandemic as a reason for increased excess costs within that context.
Okay. So one of the factors could be that we extended the option or opportunity for people to stay in there, and we know those are high costs. That could be a function of it. I don't know. We've been struggling with this issue for a number of years, and I'm just trying to find a way we can get to a solution, and not necessarily a solution because it's always so unpredictable. Okay, I'm sure some of my colleagues might have another question about it.
Yeah.
I have a question about the Aspiring Educators Diversity Scholarship Program. You reduced it by $6 million. Knowing that the program got started got started late, wasn't a lot of marketing, a lot of information out there, and we're looking to modify the program to expand it beyond priority school district to alliance districts. I think that number $6 million, that reduction is too much. And I don't think we should reduce that amount that far and that fast in one session. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think you're talking about the scholarship program, Senator, you were going in and out of that. And we just also sent over a report to the legislature, an interim report, just to provide an update of where we are on that piece. It is priority districts, as you mentioned, and we did have an interest of, well, over 300 applications, but some of those, a good number of those were not eligible, right? At the time that we did that. We're doing certainly a lot more marketing around the program now. So we are anticipating, hopefully, that the numbers will certainly grow. Even if it goes back to like 300, yeah, I think the current, what's in the governor's current budget would cover that. However, I hear that you're mentioning that you may want to do alliance districts, which would certainly open up, again, certainly more students who are able to participate. So we will certainly keep you posted as we go forward to see what the numbers are looking at. But we did send you a report recently on that. I think it was last week to the legislature.
Okay. I have one more question. Can you explain to me, and maybe I just wasn't understanding it well enough. The open source line item, we were at 11.4, a reduction to 1.2. Explain to me why that number has changed.
Senator, could you repeat? I lost some of what you were saying specifically.
So I'm looking at the open choice line item.
Okay.
We see a reduction of $10 million. Can you explain to me specifically what's going on there?
Okay. Perfect. Love open choice, Robin. I'm going to have you just jump in here and clearly clarify the reduction.
Sure. Good morning, Senator McCrory. Thank you for the question. I'll want to clarify it for you better than I did at the hearing last week. So there was an $11 million allocation in the Public Act from last session. That was reduced to 1.2 million to account for that 3% increase in the per pupil that will apply to open choice. That other 10 million was never allocated. There was no implementer. So there's no real reduction to date. If you look at fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 23, we're under the appropriation. This year, it looks like we'll be right there. So it's not impacting in terms of open choice enrollment. It's just reflective of or right sizing what we are actually enrolling in that program.
And those dollars are for school districts who are accepting kids, correct? If they're increasing the number of kids accepting, they're accepting where I think you said something about we eliminate the lowest threshold of the amount, which was like $3,000 per child, and we increased that to what, $4,000 or something like that.
4,000, but then plus a 3% increase over that. So it's eliminating that lowest. It's based upon a tiering in terms of the grant amount based upon the percentage of participation. So getting rid of that lowest one, which is for less than 2% participation, and putting that up to that 4,000 plus the 3% to acknowledge that even if a district enrolls a few more students, that's a positive thing. Let's reflect in a better way the financial impact and support enrollment of those students. But right now, the appropriation really does work for the enrollment numbers. There are, as I mentioned, other fiscal buckets, if you will, to support increased enrollment. There's bonuses built into the SHIF stipulation, for example, and then academic and support, social support funding right within the statute. So there's other sources of financial support, early beginnings, et cetera. But that's why that adjustment was made.
So So those other supports are not on this line out. The other supports that you mentioned, that's not part of this particular line out. This
No.
line out basically is for the I'll call it bonuses for school districts to accept more kids. This is what this line out is reflective of. Not all.
For that. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense to me now. Because a bit, I guess in 2023, you had allocated about 11 million. It wasn't used. That was too much basically. And you're feeling right now this number will be right where we need to be in regards to the bonuses and things that place in school districts that they receive.
Exactly. It right sizes for where we are relative to enrollment.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. And lastly, I'm looking at the rescue money, American Rescue Plan money. You eliminated $275,000 for some of these organizations. I don't think that's a good idea. I think those dollars need to go back there. I spoke to a couple of those organizations. They were just was not aware that these dollars were available for you. So I'm going to look to put those dollars back, or at least some of these dollars back into this line up for that particular budget.
So,
That's all.
Senator, yeah, no, thank you for that. And I can tell you that the staff worked very hard to reach out to folks. So anybody that's listed there, they just need to know they've got to be responsive to us.
So don't worry, they will be reallocated to programs who are really responsive to you. Don't trust and believe that will be fixed going forward. Okay. All right, I don't have any more questions. Do my colleagues? I'm trying to get this. I'm seeing if you guys have any. Representative Felipe, let me check and see if I got hands up. Let me try to.
I put my physical.
McCarthy has her hand up.
Representative McCarthy, I see your hand.
Thank you, Senator McCrory. You touched on a couple of my concerns. If I may just go back to the special education excess cost grant again. And if someone could just go over quickly, I know we changed the formula back a while ago to the 3-tiered reimbursement scale. And if we could just go over that a bit, and how you derive at I think it's 19%. It's to reduce all the districts proportionally by 19.39%. Could someone explain that process again?
And thank you, Representative, for that question. And I'll have, after our Appropriations Committee meeting, we met, usually every third Friday, I have a meeting with superintendents, and we provided for you, one of the attachments is the PowerPoint deck that we use with superintendents to do precisely what you just asked. But I'm going to ask Ajit to just quickly clarify for the benefit of those watching, because I think it's really important to understand how we get to that and clarify that even though that there's a tiered process there, it still goes back to the actual appropriation. And because tiering occurred didn't necessarily mean the appropriation covered what districts needed. So Ajit, if you could just do that briefly as well, that would be great. And Senator, when you get a chance to look at that PowerPoint deck, you'll see with examples that we've actually put in there to understand how the calculation works.
Thank you, Commissioner. Representative McCarty, I'm looking at that slide 6, which you're probably looking at. Essentially what happens is that we take the uncapped request from all districts. We apply, and that's an example that's using 3 fictitious districts with 3 fictitious amounts. And it's saying that if each of those 3 districts were on a different tier, 91%, 88%, and 85%. And even after you apply that reduction of, pay them 91% or 88% or 85%, and then you total up what we have to pay them, that is still over what we have available. So in effect, we have to now proportionally reduce, and that is in the statute, basically to proportionally reduce so that's to stay within the appropriation. So that's what that 19.39 in that particular example, that's not real data, it's just a fictitious example, but that's essentially what happens. And that's what's happening even this year, is when you apply the tiers, and then when you look at how much we have to pay every district and add that up, we're still over what's available. So now we have to proportionally reduce everyone to get to staying within the appropriation. And that proportional reduction language is also in the statute, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to stay within the appropriation. Does that help?
Yes, no, that's, and I appreciate the handout and will continue to review it, but I personally have, and I've said it out loud before, I believe all the districts should be entitled to the reimbursement, and I was never favorable for the three-tiered approach, but I understand there's limited funding there, but I think going forward, we have to really study the special education excess costs and find a solution. It's so difficult for the districts, trying to plan ahead and not really know. And then now we're reducing even to a greater degree with the tiered approach than we were before. And when did that go into place? I know it was not too long ago, right?
Yeah, the tiers, I believe, went into effect starting with the 22-23 year. So
Right.
this is the second year of the application of the tiers.
Yeah. Okay.
Senator, a big part of that is that folks thought that the tiers would take care of it, and that they could now, plan for what those numbers were with more specificity and more confidence. But again, the appropriation still kicks in. And that's what we're trying to make folks just understand how that works. It's still subject to the appropriation. And that cause another calculation to happen again per statute. And certainly appreciate that, because we're trying to make sure that our districts understand that as well. And so everybody understands the process around that. So I appreciate your question on it, and certainly any follow-up as we've laid this out. But we wanted to make sure that folks had an idea of how the calculation is working.
Right. Thank you very much. And I too want to recognize the department for all of the materials. It's like a little dissertation here. They're given quite a bit, so I'll be studying and going through it. Just to back up on Senator McCrory's question a few minutes, could you just assure that the districts are all understanding that about the ESSER funds and the time limits and how those funds are being distributed? Because I know you don't have too much time, right, left to have those allocated. Could you just go over that briefly?
Sure. And thanks again for another really important issue that we want to make sure that we've covered extensively. And we have, since the ESSER funds came into Connecticut, have spent a lot of time educating our districts around process and what needs to happen. And not just the superintendents, but also school business officials. And so the information that we shared with you, again, that we met with superintendents, I sent this out again to them yesterday. The team is going to be meeting on a monthly basis with school business officials as well, Senator, just to be sure. I've reached out to a superintendent association or CABE, just to be sure that everybody understands where we are and what needs to occur. And we're just continuing to do that, including our staff here. So, for example, the staff that works with the Alliance districts, that's a part of the work that they do in reaching out and connecting and reminding them of what needs to happen. The same is true with our charter schools. So we are doing that. As you know, we have an expenditure dashboard, publicly available, transparent, makes it really easy for anyone in district to really take a look to see what resources are still with us, so that they can ask the questions. We use it as well to make sure we understand. It's updated every single day, so we know exactly where we are at any given point, so we can provide the supports necessary for the districts. And so we provided you, maybe it was well over a week ago, with a run of what's out there. I am sure if we did it today that there's probably some reductions, I would hope, in that number, but we're watching it extremely carefully and making individual connections with districts as necessary to make sure that we don't leave anything on the table.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. It's important that this be done and that the districts take hold of it and not return those funds, and we need them so desperately. And I just wanted to thank you for the information you sent out on the LEAP program, the 14 districts, and I think Senator Austin is on today. Pleased to see that we could and I know I've expressed this before, that a lot of our rural districts also have need for these type of programs. I see that there's an effort looking like you may try to increase it. Do you want to talk a bit about the LEAP program and how that's functioning?
No, absolutely, and thank you. And I'm going to have John on standby as well. As you know, the LEAP program, nationally recognized as a relational home visiting program. These districts that allow really folks to be able to knock on doors and make visits to families, really to understand how they can help and support them in getting students to attend school regularly. We have really great results from the districts that have now been participating, the 14 districts. And thank you for the funding. As you know, we started this program with the governor's education funding for $10 million. That allowed us to build the program to be where we are today. And thank you again for the ARPA dollars for the last couple of sessions that got us to where we are to support the additional districts. And now in the governor's proposed budget, there's a $7 million that we're able to use to continue to expand the program. Beyond the districts that are actually here getting funding, we know that other districts have been going through the training so that they're using their own resources to deploy these visitors to go and make visits at home and to really support families. We're learning a lot. We hear anecdotally from families who are being helped with this program, just connecting them to services, which is really so important. And so, John, I'll just ask you to just briefly jump in. I know you work very closely with the program. Anything else that we'd like to add about the program that I may have missed?
No, I don't think so, Commissioner. You did a fantastic job of explaining it. And just that the visits are continuing. I think sometimes we see numbers of phone calls made to families as being a large number, but just know that a lot of those phone calls are making the arrangements for home visits, but that the home visits in person are continuing to happen. Over 50,000 home visits to date, and over 30,000 students impacted already for the LEAP program. So again, echoing the commissioner's comments, we appreciate the opportunity with the funding to expand to additional districts.
Right, and I think this funding, this is in the general fund. This is not ARPA dollars, right? The 7 million is actually budgeted in, and I think these dollars are well spent. That as we continue to track and look at the data and how the LEAP program is working, I believe it's a cost savings program in the end, because as we keep our students back in school and able to graduate, it's going to have positive effects. So I think it's money well spent. I'm glad to see that it was not just the ARPA dollars this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Representative McCarthy. Next up, Senator Kathy Austin. I see she's busy having another conversation. So I will, okay. No, she took her hand down. Representative Felipe, you're up next. And Representative Felipe and the rest of the guys on this call, I'm going to step out for like 10 minutes. So Representative Felipe, you can ask your questions, and can you call on the next person? I should be back in 10 minutes. I'll just have to show
Yes, sir. Got it from here.
Excuse me,
Thank you.
Felipe, I'm the one who lowered Senator Austin's hand because I expected her to ask the question. So if you could call on her again when you're done, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll give her time to finish her conversation.
That's all right. I'm ready. I'm back.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
there you
I figured Kathleen wasn't going to stop for a while.
go.
So, because I know she always has a lot of questions. I just, Commissioner,
Yes.
we have been putting money in the budget every year for excess costs. And we miss the mark every year, even though we ask SDE the number. And we just can't seem to get anywhere near a number that would 100% cover excess cost. So I'm curious, is there a way that we could require local municipalities to report to you on a quarterly basis the excess cost numbers they've experienced thus far in a year, so that the numbers could be based off of actual cost. By the time we get to April, when we would be doing this, or May in a long session, you could have 3/4 of information that would give us an idea on what the dollars may be. I think that we've got to figure out a way to get better detail on excess costs. Is that something that we could do?
Senator Austin, thank you so much for recognizing the timing issue of this particular, and we've been having some conversations here. So Ajit, I may not have a specific answer for you today, but we've been talking about just the timing, because what we get for data relies on what districts are able to also get us in time for data and the information that they have. So we really need to explore, we've again been having that conversation here. What is it that we can do to make sure that we're getting some information earlier to be able to get to you? So Ajit, and I know some of the timing is in legislation, but Ajit has been responsible for some of the data collection. Just your thoughts on that, knowing that we have to have some further conversation internally.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that these are the timelines in statute, December 1 and March 1. So we do get an initial count in shortly after December 1, which enables us to give this preliminary estimates. But the final numbers don't come till March 1. And again, these are the dates that are in statute that we work with. We can, as the commissioner mentioned, have conversations with districts to see if those timelines can be altered. And if they can, then we'll probably need to first make some statutory change to make sure that the deadlines for reporting are changed so that we can collect this information sooner. But again, that's conversation we'll need to have.
I think having not waiting till December 1, we may need to start something earlier than that, just to get a baseline, and to go halfway through the school year and not have that baseline. Should maybe even start off the first of the year with where you stand to begin with, that day one, and then where 3 months later, where 3 months later. Just, we've got to wrap our heads around the cost of special education, and in particular the excess cost of special education. We are so far off this year when we put an additional 25 million in, and we're actually paying out less on a percentage basis, more on a dollars basis, but less on a percentage basis to schools. So, anyways, I just wanted to say that, and then my second question is on VOAG, and I'm thinking of trying to figure out a way to not have the money prorated, so taking that section out of the statute so that there's a certain dollar amount that's paid for VOAG, and so that it's not prorated. It's really not a lot of money. Essentially, it's $740,000 this year that was prorated off of the payments for this year, and then it just doesn't make a lot of sense to have a form of education well used in a lot of the rural communities in northwestern part of the state and northeastern and southeastern part of the state. So that's something that I'm really looking at. I'd want to hear you comment on that, Commissioner.
So, Senator, and just back to the excess costs, I would certainly reach out to superintendents to have a conversation about timing. What would they need, and what would they have to be able to share, and whether we could do something with timing on that. So we'll certainly follow up and share that with you. Talking about another timing issue with the VOAG programming as well, for the last 4 years, as you may know, we've been under the cap. And this past year, with an additional 150 students is what got us over, that cap as well. And so, we were stable. Even the enrollments were stable over those 4 years, and the appropriation was as well. So I think it requires us to, I don't know if there's a way we can forecast growth in the program to get a sense of where we are. And we'll explore that as well. To see, are we now at a new threshold, right? With the 150 students added, is this a new threshold from which we can move forward, or are there potential growth in the program? So again, we will continue to take a look at that and see if we can be better able to predict the kind of where we are in that. So you can get at, I know you're interested in the 5,200 per program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Sorry. Sorry, I was listening to the housing public hearing as well. Anybody else have any questions before I jump in? First question, Madam Commissioner, nice to see you.
See you always.
The 800,000 for American School for the Deaf, I heard from a couple folks within the administration that was basically just kind of a mistake that happened. Is that true?
So I'm not familiar with that, Representative. For us, we really act as a pass-through. The money comes to us, we pass it through directly to the school, and we're really not engaged in their instructional services and all of that. So I would take what they share, but I don't have further knowledge beyond the amount that is in the appropriation in the budget.
Understood. Sorry, somebody have. So moving on, I think I wanted to go back to LEAP for a second, because I know Bridgeport's one of the LEAP communities. Just very quickly, is there data now that we can kind of digest to see how the program has been working, broken down between, the ages of the students impacted, the ethnicities of the students impacted, and what zip codes they happen to live in? Because I think that that's the most equitable way to look at the data, and something that I'd be very interested in seeing.
Sure.
He's been supportive of the program. I would like to see it broken out. I do not like that it was included along with school meals in this whole reallocation of the $150 million. I'd rather they be their own write-ups, but I do see the impact of the program. We've talked about it for a couple of years now. I would just like to see if it's really getting to the crux of what it's trying to accomplish.
Sure. Representative, thank you. I'm so pleased with all the support that this program has gotten, because it's so foundational to our students' success. We've got the program was evaluated by our research collaborative. And Ajit, I'm wondering, what do we have for data, and whether we're able to, I know in the report, we called out communities and kind of the impact that we were seeing, and across the board, the age cohorts, and just the impact of one home visit for students returning to school and attendance. So Ajit or John, specific information based on Representative ask that we're able to share, broken out?
The first report that came out did break out impact by communities. It's in the report, and so we can share that. I could tell you that the researchers actually are in the midst of finalizing a quantitative analysis for the 22-23 year, and teasing out the impacts of the visit, again, just to make sure that the program continues to remain effective. And so we will have an update to the 21-22 report with the 22-23 data. The current year data, it's harder to report on LEAP during the year because the data are messy and it takes time to collect, clean, and get all that data. So at this point, we have a sense of number of students and visits that have happened, but we don't really have all the impact studied yet. But I know, John, you've been looking at that as well in terms of the number of students and the visits.
Yeah, so again, we are looking at the numbers, and we are also collecting some qualitative data from the districts around the families that they're serving. And we continue to focus on those students with the highest levels of absenteeism, right? So we know that in Bridgeport, as with elsewhere, the students with high needs are the population of students that are the most chronically absent, and for that reason, we're targeting districts in the future to add new districts based on their high needs. So we can look at that, Representative Felipe, we can look at that qualitative responses from the district, as well as what Ajit described as some of the data collection that's happening in terms of numbers.
So we can share with you, Representative, the report that was done, as Ajit mentioned, that called out the individual districts. So you can see that, and just for everyone's information as well, our chronic absence data by districts can be reviewed on our data portal by school, even by grade level, which is so we know exactly where we should target. We can look to see if the students are high need students. We can see those who are experiencing homelessness. We literally can break it down to that level, and we're able to see that information even by district and even by school in districts and by grade. So we have a lot of that information that's available to us, but specifically to the research, we will recirculate that report, that first report that was done that shared information by the different communities that were participated.
Thank you. And just when you say communities, that it was broken down by communities, is that just the city in which the city or town in which it is?
The district.
Yeah, because I would like to see eventually it broken down a little bit more of on a micro level, just because if you look at Bridgeport, the difference between the Black Rock area and the South End that I represent, median income is about half. So the socioeconomic impact is different across larger districts. So I just want to be able to look at that in a deeper way. But
sure.
Thank you for that.
And Representative, just one last thing as well, because I think it's so important that we surveyed families, across the state, and trying to find out what, from their standpoint, what are the barriers, so that we can figure out as well, are there solutions, right? If it's housing, right? What are those? I mean, schools are not able to solve that problem, but it allows us to act as a state in support. So we do have that information as well. That's further informing the work that we're doing, along with the campaign that we have, School is Better With You campaign, that's added to that as well. So we're taking out all the stops. It's so important that our students are in school every day and engaged in learning.
Yeah, and lastly, I just wanted to get to, in the 150 million that we added, there was an open choice line that was pretty severely cut. I just want to know what that cut was. As you know, I've not always been the biggest fan of open choice programs in Connecticut, but I know that I live in a region that doesn't use them as heavily as, say, the Chef region does. So just want to see what the impact of the open choice in that particular pot is.
Okay.
Being affected that way.
No, perfect. Robin?
Morning, Representative. Yeah, that particular allocation was without an implementer, was to add to the per pupil. Based upon fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, the appropriation is very much appropriate for the enrollment level. So it really just, this change to just the 1.2 to cover the 3% increase to the per pupil, just basically right sizes it to actual enrollment, that level of funding didn't align with the level of enrollment in the open choice program.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back, Representative Felipe. Yeah, and I asked that question a little earlier, and I'm finally comfortable with how it was explained to me. I saw that big drop also, but it's totally different from what I was thinking of. So kind of okay with it. Who's up next?
I don't know if anybody's up next.
Oh my God, this is a great hearing. We're going that quickly? Really?
SDE.
All right.
I could have, Senator McCrory, if we have an opportunity. So if I may just go to the 3.5 million that was targeted for the masterclass of the Science of Reading, Commissioner. Do you know how far that funding will go? Because I know part of the effort is to ensure that all of our districts are have that training and the development that they needed. Would there be other ARPA dollars if that funding is not sufficient?
So another great question, another great program that is so important to us is doing this elite training for our school staff and administrators. And so what's in the 3.5 gets us another cohort of about 25 districts that we can add. But we're currently, and Irene, you can fact check me on this. As you know, I've appropriated close now to $10 million of our COVID or ESSER set aside dollars for this work. And we are pretty soon beginning another cohort using those ESSER funds. And so the additional 3.5 now that's in the budget would get us another cohort. Irene, am I accurate on that? I believe that's accurate.
Yes, you are correct. You're accurate.
So we have a new cohort that's starting like right now using the ESSER dollars. And then the new what's in the budget would get us another cohort of about 25 districts.
Right.
Does that answer your question, Senator? Representative?
It does, but I'm still trying to figure out how many other districts have not, so you're mentioning the ones that have had the training, and I'm just trying to figure out, looking ahead, how many other districts will still need to, because I think the goal would be to have every district, right? So I'm just trying to figure that out, the funding piece to it. Thank you.
And how many districts with these added to that? I'm asking Irene. She may have those numbers, or we can get those numbers to you, Representative, to what have we covered today, and how many districts that we have left. So we can get that information for you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have two quick questions, and I know Kathy probably hit on it earlier. You can give me a quick answer. I don't know a little bit. The $5,200 rate for BOAG, are we at that amount currently right now, or are we a little below the statutory amount that we should be subsidizing our BOAG schools for $5,200? Where are we with that?
So with the Senator, there we were under the cap for the last 4 years. But there was an additional, this year, an additional 150 students put us a little bit over, so it had to be prorated. So that's what we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Okay, so we're almost to the $5,200 amount, or are we close to where we should be? I'm not quite sure. When you said
Do you have that number of where we landed?
So for the $5,200 went into effect starting with 21-22.
Right.
So for 21-22 and 22-23, we were able to fund at 5,200. In 23-24, given the few extra students, we are having to reduce a little proportionally.
Okay. And what do we plan to do for next year, 24, 25? Are we putting more dollars in because the reflected new students in the program?
I don't have that.
I mean, we share the information, Representative, and then that's something to be looking at as you're looking at the budget to see where we are. What I talked about with Senator Austin is whether, I don't know if there's a way we can help to predict, enrollment growth in the program, but that's where we are.
And lastly, I know Kathy, when I was walking, she said, but we put money in the budget for excess costs, but unfortunately, it's not enough. How much we were off from what we put in the budget to what the actual number came out to the fiscal year in the year? How much money we were off by?
Ajit, I think currently we're about $74 or $75 million.
Yes, because the 23-24 year, senators saw a significant increase from 204 million to 255 million. The appropriation is at 181 million. So that's where the $74 million difference comes from. And that's preliminary because it's based on the December 1 numbers, and we're still waiting on the March 1.
Okay. And what do we have in the budget for this year? Are we coming at are we still at 180, whatever number you just said, or
this year, meaning like the 23-24 year, it's at 181 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator, and all committee members. Have a great rest of the day.
Mr. Chair. So I don't have a question for the commissioner at all. I just wanted to let you know that in the screening of bills, we sent some bills to the two chairs for possible review and action, more appropriate than having a public hearing on a bill. So I just wanted to let you know that you got some bills from Administrator Keen.
Well, they will be, Madam Chair. They will be receiving them from Administrator Keen.
Oh, thank you.
And Administrator Keen would like to let the legislators know that for this afternoon, we have a lunch break now until 1 o'clock. This will be the same Zoom link. I'm going to keep the Zoom link open. So if you want to close out of Zoom and you don't want to keep it open, by all means, you may leave and then just use the original link for the 11 o'clock meeting that's in your calendars to resume participation at 1 o'clock. Okay.
Okay. Sue, I know who's up at 1 o'clock. I know I saw the email earlier. I'm trying to find it.
We've got Teachers Retirement Board up at 1, and then at 1:30 you've got the Office of Early Childhood.
Okay, at 1:30, and after that, that's it.
And that's it.
TRB and early
Oh,
childhood.
I'm sorry.
Tech schools.
The tech schools. How can I forget the tech schools?
What time? Tech schools at 2?
Hold on. Administrators in a little, I said to Representative McCarty this morning, the administrators operating in a little bit of a fog. So we've got the CTEX at 1, Teachers Retirement Board at 1:30, and then the Office of Early Childhood at 2.
Okay. That makes
My
sense.
apologies.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you later.
Thank you.